Hello everyone, Burb here. Hope your day is going well. As you know, the registration period for Sagittarius Cup has started, which means it is time for us to go over the next CM, which is Capricorn Cup. This will happen about 3 weeks after the end of Sagittarius Cup, so we got a lot to go through. It's going to be a pretty chaotic champions meeting, so let's begin. As per my recommendation, if you have passable UMAs for Sagittarius Cup, my suggestion is to stop. And the reason being is you're going to just try to do min-max. You're going for much thinner margins. You're going to rush it. You're going to get yourself frustrated. Instead, use your energy, use your borrows, use your time to get parents for the next CM. If not, well, got to look at the Sagittarius guides that are out there. I have a couple. Just make a gold chip and 2 pace chasers and just move on and try to get just the minimum requirements. So without further ado, let's begin. If you're new here, we're going to go over the high-level overview in this video, which is going to be stats. It's going to look at the actual racetrack, the deck building suggestions, the inherits, as well as general run suggestions. If you're looking for specific cards to run or specific UMAs to run, I will put those in the Pace Chaser, the Late Surger, and the End Closer guides in their specific sections themselves. So this is just going to be high level. Let's just get into it. Capricorn Cup, get some housekeeping out of the way. Chukio Turf, 1200 meter, left-handed soft winter snow, and of course short sparks are going to be your friend. Left-handed winter runner, the 2 most important ones for non-front runners. The rest of them are there if you need to hit groundwork, okay? For stats, 1200 speed is probably the most important thing. You don't have to hit exactly 1200. Beginning as close as possible is very good, especially since there's not many other requirements for this. For stamina, the minimum is basically whatever the game gives you. You can actually survive with 200 on most characters with decent enough wit. 300 is just there as the guideline because you probably are going to get that anyways on any build. But if it's less than that, it's honestly not even that big of a deal. The next big thing is you need a balance of power and wit. We'll explain this later and why a balance is good. If you are a front runner, you want to boost your wit as high as possible. I put 800 here as a minimum. A lot of people, and I think I'm not a front runner main myself, I'm pretty sure you're going to want 1,000 plus, if not almost maxed. And it's very easy to do so because if you've done a Bakashin strategy, 1200 speed, 1200 wit, you can get that with like a 3-3 build. Okay? Power is very important this CM for the gamblers and pace chasers because of the fact that the spurt is so short, and because of that, any acceleration is really going to boost your times. 595 power in simulation only, caveat simulation only, is equal to a 1.8 second gold acceleration skill, and 770 power is equal to a 3.6 second gold acceleration skill. This is because of power has a logarithmic relationship with distance gained. As if with speed, 1,000 speed and 1,200 speed is a much less increase than 800 speed to 100 speed to 1,000 speed. It's the same thing with power. So if you're able to max out power while still hitting your other stats, and someone else only gets like 600 power, you basically have a on your left where they don't. Just built-in perfect timing every single time. This is an example with on your left. You can see on your left, even when it's procs almost perfectly, goes and it matches the difference of 595 power over someone. So the extra power is very nice. It is useful. It is not like normal. Now we'll talk about the uphill in a second here. So let's go over this track. So the position keep is quite late on this track. It goes all the way to 600 meters. The first thing that you encounter is a downhill that continues the entirety of the position keep and the mid-race. Notably for pace chasers, that means that straight descent is a gambling skill technically. It is very difficult because it can proc any time during this entire race. So if you like a gambling skill and you have the skill points, go for it. There is a corner within the position keep and there is a corner after the position keep. So pretty much any corner skill will either be a pace break, which could work, or it could also immediately set you into pace down mode. That's always the gamble with pace breakers. Or it can also be a mid-race speed skill, which are incredibly useful in this CM. Notably, straightaway skills are the same way. They can either be a pace break at the start, or they can be a late race speed skill, which has varying effectiveness. And we'll talk about that in a bit. 777 for all the Augury Cap Christmases, which the Augury Cap has a problem in this CM that you have to spend 300 skill points on 3 separate recoveries on a sprint race, which recoveries are not very useful for. 777 is too early, so you want to use straightaway recovery in order to get your acceleration there. But again, you're spending 300 skill points on an acceleration in a CM that has a lot of good accelerations to use. All right, the most notable thing about the Chukyo Sprint is that your mid-race is actually shorter than your spurt. It's only about 300 meters. It's 700 to 400, and the spurt is 400 to 0. So your spurt is actually longer than your mid-race, so your accelerations and your late-race skills, as we'll talk about, are just as important as your mid-race skills. So the final corner happens too early. That is very notable in that normal corner accelerations will not work. We were talking about your Saiyan Sky, your Taiki Shuttles, and your Measuros. Maruzensky has a caveat. We'll talk about that in a bit, but in general, they just simply do not work. They happen too early on the corner. So we're going to have to go with standard gambling or other inherits, so that are a little bit different, the straight inherits essentially. There is an uphill on the third timing for Highlander. It is an okay acceleration skill. It's a luxury skill for sure. Notably, this uphill happens in the acceleration zone, which means that even though there is a uphill in the final spurt, your target speed, because you're in accelerating, you will not hit your target speed just yet, so it does not have as much of an effect that power gives you. The power is really only giving you acceleration at this point, so it will not lower your target speed enough for it to have an effect on your final speed, to have an effect in your final late race rather. Okay. The last thing is the spurt. It is 400 meters. If you do not hit your acceleration, you only have about 100 meters at max speed. If you hit a good acceleration like No Stopping Me at perfect timing, it is a gambling skill, or an On Your Left, you'll have between 150 and 250 meters of your max speed. This means that late race speed skills, if you do not hit your acceleration, will have half or almost no effectiveness. Okay? So late race speed skills have varying effectiveness based on how well your acceleration is. So acceleration is incredibly important on all CMs, but especially this CM because it actually activates your late race speed skills. So let's talk about inherits. The primary inherit, I'm not a front runner main, but the primary inherit, according to just Simulator and what I've heard from around here, is Victoria por Plancha, which is El Condor Pasa base, as well as a secondary, in my opinion, a secondary of Give Mummy a Hug, which is Super Creek Halloween. The reason being is Super Creeks is a gamble based on timing, and Victoria por Plancha is a gamble based on positioning. And as a front runner, you want to be in the front of the pack, so being in first and second I think is a lot easier. And if Victoria por Plancha hits, you gain distance, which is good. A honorable mention to Bakashin as a secondary, Genius X Bakashin, because if I recall, it is a gamble as well, and it is not as effective as the others, but it is there as a secondary. Bakashin notably has very, very low affinity, so putting it on her honestly may not even be worth it, depending on how hard it is to get sprint and turf on your Umas. For pace chasers, my personal favorite is to use Narita Bryan. I may be alone on this because I think speed carryover is underrated in this. People talk about it, but I think that it is very good, especially on the sprint. But you can also give Mummy a Hug because it is first through fourth, so you're most likely going to be in fourth and get decent timing. And if you are running a high wit build and you want to gamble a little bit, you can gamble for a high wit roll and try to get in first and second. It is comp dependent. If there's a bunch of runaways, you're not going to hit VPP. But if it hits, it is incredibly effective. So this is kind of your gamble for your pace chasers if you want to go for high wit. Notably, front pace for Daiwa is super gambling. The reason being, if you look at the track itself, it happens on a final corner on an overtaken second. So if you're in first, it's going to proc right on the corner. It's not going to be useful. But if you go and move into second place or first place on right before this spurt, you will hit an acceleration that's going to carry you through the game, and you probably will win right off of that. But it only happens like maybe 1 out of every 5 or 1 out of every 10 times just through the simulations. So it is incredibly gambling. It is a possibility for fronts and for paces. You do need to go and somehow transfer into second first at the proper time, but it is just a super gambly if you really like gambling, which most frontrunner mains I don't think like gambling because they just are the role that just kind of goes and does their thing. All right. The gambling inherits to late suitors and end closers, in my opinion. I just prefer the speed carryover possibility of Narita Bryan over any other options. The other options for King Halo and for Oguri Cap, again, if you hit your acceleration skill properly, they both will hit at the 200 meter mark and be fine. If you don't, the 200 meter mark will still be in the excel zone and you'll get a diminished effect. Notably, Give Mommy a Hug is first through fourth, so if you have high wit, you can go for it. Maruzensky, I don't understand personally why people recommend it. So you need to be in fifth through first. People use it as an overtake skill because if you're in sixth normally and you accelerate into fifth, you're good. But you are really on this final corner. If you're on this final corner, you are gambling the fact that you will get into fifth place somewhere around here, like the Daiwa alt. I don't think it happens very often because, first of all, there's going to be a lot of front runners on this map. And if you get into fifth early, then it's not going to work. If you get into fifth late, it's not even going to proc at all because you immediately go into a straight in the spurt. And your spurt's going to be where your accelerations hit normally. So I guess it's a luxury skill in my opinion. If someone else has more insight on it, it's possible you get into fifth, but you're talking like 1, 2, 3, 4 wit rolls maybe on the seconds that it gets through here. And I don't think it happens very often, personally. Just from my thinking of the last time that we used Maruzensky on corner, it was a lot closer. So like I think the corner was here on Maruzensky's before, and now it's like all the way back here. So we're spending this whole time not being in fifth place, but then all of a sudden being in fifth place, and then from fifth place still having to win. Okay, so we've gone through the inherits. These are my suggestions. Other people have different ideas, but general deck suggestions, you're going to see, for the first time ever, I can unironically say, I think Rico bad. Okay? Rico bad in this CM because you don't need the stamina, you don't need the guts. Now, you can still run him as your PAL card if you have absolutely nothing else for PAL cards. PAL cards are not required, though, but just depending on your deck. The most common deck I think you're going to see is probably a speed wit deck. We are going to see, depending on whether or not you have 20% or 10%, you're probably going to see a 2-4 for whales, a 3-3 if you're not a whales, and a 1-5 if you have decent enough cards to propel your speed, like a Kittison Black, as well as a 20% speed boost, as well as some good lucky high rolls. You can run some roamers in the wit slots, and you have enough to get wit to 1200 easily, plus getting speed, plus power sparks, especially for speed wit deck, because you need that power in addition to the rest of the stats. If you do not, the problem with this deck is that you do not have a PAL card, so you are gambling on the mood downs, okay? If you prefer the consistency of Rico, I highly suggest especially Aoi Kiryuin because you get a lot of skill points with her. Or if you have Tazna probably is the better card at high MLB as well. This will give you the mood ups from the original Rico without having to waste points on stamina, to be honest, because Rico's going to give you like 250 stamina. That's kind of his thing. Tazna kind of spreads it out. She's more of a speed card than a stamina card. Rico's more of a stamina card. Kiryuin's more of a wit card because she gives bonus wit and she gives a bunch of skill points. So it kind of slots in nice. This is probably the conservative speed deck if you just want to be comfy. I suggest running this or running speed wit. Now, you can run speed wit power by adding a power card. I would suggest a roaming card for power. And the problem with this deck is stamina is useless. So when you press the power button, you're not really getting use out of the stamina you get out of it. So it is nice if you have like an El Condor Pasa, you can really hit 1200 speed, 1200 power, and hopefully pretty high wit. But this is an option if you have some power bonus on your character and you just want to really max out that power. The power build is also useful because you get access to Ignited Spirit power. And with that, you have an additional acceleration option that isn't as good as like on your left for the gamblers, but it is good. It is possible in every roll, and it gives you another acceleration for free. The run I'm going to try and test with, I haven't really tested it fully, but I believe a Guts hybrid build with a singular Guts card with a high training effectiveness will be good, because if you use like Aurora, instead of normally when you're pressing the power button, you're going to be pressing a Guts button in summer maybe, or just when in the early game when you're trying to get your uppies for your actual Unity trainings. And because of that, when you press the Guts button, you get the power button, and you get the speed button, and it's not as much power as just the power, but with power sparks you're going to have enough power, you're going to get some guts, which is a more useful stat than stamina is, because you at least get some speed bonus while you're still helping the rest of your deck, and you're not sacrificing that much wit, because you're probably running 3 wit cards and 2 speed cards with it, because you probably have a 20% Uma with this build. Guts maxing is very difficult to do in this training and whatsoever, like in this scenario, but it is an option. It is incredibly finicky. I tried it out in the long CM with Agnes Tachyon. I got like maybe 1 or 2 Agneses to work. I think in the sprint CM it's going to be easier because you don't need stamina at all. But if you run triple guts, double wit, you probably will have about 600 to 700 wit, and you'll have like 1,000 guts, and you'll have enough speed with speed sparks or with a 20% speed character to hit the 1,200 speed, and you'll have decent enough power. Notably, 800 guts, the difference between 400 and 1,200 guts is only about 200 speed. I say only, but you'll most likely be getting around 800 to 1,000 guts. So you'll get probably about 100 extra speed, which is equivalent to about a double circle green skill plus a single green skill. So just a little bonus. Is free to play friendly because you have 3 free cards, but it's just very high rolly and finicky. So I would do this after you get your Umas already set. There is a debate on whether Turf or Sprint S is important. In my opinion, it's kind of both. The reason is that, again, the mid-race is the exact same. The late race spurt is going pretty short, while as the acceleration zone is long. So it's almost like the acceleration zone is longer than the spurt itself. I just did a A-B comparison in Emulator, where one had the distance S and one had the surface S. There is a little bit of a wit difference. I added a little bit of wit because the seed I had no stopping me slightly different. So I did a singular skill that is proccing at a good time, a very good time, and I found out that it's the negative, which means the distance slightly wins. And this is only because you have a well-procced acceleration skill. If you don't proc an acceleration skill, then the surface aptitude itself, the extra power from that, is going to help you a lot more than the distance, because the acceleration zone is going to be longer than the actual distance itself. The distance aptitude is going to help you if you hit a high roll on your acceleration, so that you can actually close it out and be faster. So in my opinion, personally, I think distance is slightly better, but if you're able to get both, you're at quite a large advantage over the other Umas, honestly. So if you can get Turf S and you can get distance S on a good Uma, really nice. Otherwise, I hate to say I'm probably against the grain on this. I think the distance is better, because if you're hitting your accelerations good, that's when you need the help. That's when you're going to be able to close out against the really good A finals Umas. If you're just trying to get into A finals, I guess the Turf is more important, and that kind of tracks, because it's hard to get like VPP on. It's hard to get VPP on a sprint, because El Contrapasta doesn't have sprint, as well as if does not even go for front runners, because front runners just have a slower acceleration coefficient than gamblers do. This is more from the eyes of a gambler. So to conclude, in general, the checklist is: you want to get near max speed, a balance of power and wit, your acceleration skills, your mid-race speed skills. Again, we'll go over these skills in the separate guides themselves. The mid-race speed skills a lot of times are going to be position keep breakers, because of their corner skills. Your late race speed skills, which are going to be also your position keep skills, because they are straight skills, are luxury, because they are not as important as your corner skills or your mid-race speed skills. And then after everything, guts, it will be a luxury. I didn't mention this before, but there is no thresholding this time, so you can just kind of build whatever you like as long as you hit stats. There's no 301, 601, 901 to hit this time. All right, in conclusion, some observations just from running some early runs. Any Uma with an Aptitude can work, as per usual, especially on these shorter CMs that don't have any stamina requirements. A lot of Umas you're going to find, and we'll go through it, do not have Sprint S. It is kind of rare. Do not have Sprint A, rather. So you're going to have to get some Sprint Sparks with it. Any race style can work. The front runners can get further enough ahead with wit that the late surgers and the end closers can't reach them. If the late surger and end closer hits, they kind of just win. Almost all skills are gambling in this one because there's a chance they are in the position keep and then you pace down immediately after if you get unlucky there. If gamblers hit, they win. Almost all skill, I talked about that. You can outpower other Umas, so even if you do not hit your acceleration skills perfectly, if you have high power, you literally can just win. It is possible. There's going to be a lot of chaos in this CM with just packs breaking down. The position keep is late. You're going to be able to break through position keep randomly. Just a lot of random stuff that can happen on these sprint ones. So power is just my kind of go-to. Run what you like. And honestly, again, power, wit, and speed sparks for sure. Incredibly important. That stamina is not really useful at all. So if you have, this is the time to really bring out your power, wit, and speed spark Umas. All right, just a reiteration from the previous video, your anti-burnout strategy. This is what my suggestion is. This is how I kind of prepare for CMs. Build a meta Uma first, so what you see in guides. Make a passable meta Uma that has a good chance of getting you into A finals. For this one, we'll go over it, but there's just a lot of different meta Umas that kind of work, so it's less important this time. So once you have a passable meta Uma, build your Fun and Oshi Uma if she is able to hit the Aptitude. So if you have a Fun and Oshi Uma for this one, make a good version of it that maybe is a little better than you think than the meta Uma, and then finally start working on Umas that further your account. In this case, it could be trying to force an El Condor Pasa Pace Chaser, because then you naturally get El Condor Pasa Parents with Victoria Porplancha for those that you probably haven't done yet because her ult hasn't been very good yet. You could be trying to get some late surger, honestly, like try to run a Mejuro even though their ults don't really work, and just try to get good parents for that. And then repeats 2 and 3. So go back to your Oshi, try to make her a little better, and then go and pick another character that's good. Maybe try to make a Rudolph this time or a Oguri Cap this time, because they both can probably work if you force them. And just repeat it over and over again until the end. So this has been the Capricorn Overview. A little bit rambly, more rambly than I like, but the Pace Chaser guide is probably going to be out in a day or two. The Late Surger guide afterward, and then the End Closer. So hope you all enjoyed. If you have any questions, just let me know. This has been Burb, and Burb out.